physical that I will be in after this one. So it's really started at the age of 3, and then I didn't have much interaction from age, but I was always aware of different vibrational frequencies around me. I could sense them, I was attuned to them. And then on one occasion, I was 8 years old, I was taking a bath at home, and there was a change in the vibrational, excuse me, frequency in the room, and there's also a drop in temperature. And I looked to my right, and there were 2 beings that materialized. They were both very attractive, one male, one female, wearing a tight-fitting blue jumpsuit. They both had blue eyes, and they were speaking to one another telepathically, and I could understand what they were saying. And they weren't speaking to me, they were speaking about me. And I remember some of the conversation. I remember D, their names are Ort D, they are fifth dimensional beings, and they informed me they are Arcturian and they're from Andromeda. I got that information later on, but at this point, I remember D saying to Ort, "Is this the boy?" And D said, "Yes." Ort said, "Yes, this is a boy." And then D replied again, "Are you sure this is a boy? He's very small, he's uneducated, and look, he's frightened by our presence." And she was correct. I was terrified at that moment with these 2 beings in my bathroom. And he says, "Yes, this is a boy. I will guide him. I will teach him." There was some conversation that they were slightly elevated on the floor, and then they left. And as I said, I was so frightened, I didn't get out of the bath. I stayed in the bath. The water went cold. My mother came to see why I was still in the bath. I told her about the 2 beings, and she said it was just my imagination. She dried me off, and I went on with the evening. But it wasn't my imagination. It was my first contact with Ort D, and Ort was true to his word. He's guided me, he's taught me, he's shown many things, and introduced me to other higher conscious beings, ETs, angelics, whatever title you want to put on these beings. They've become part of my reality. And as I said, I think earlier to Carol, I wouldn't have spoken out about my experience with them if it hadn't been for about 3 years ago. I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I came back from the bathroom. I was just about to snuggle down into bed, and a bright light appeared outside the bedroom window. It came into the window, into the bedroom, and lit up the bedroom like a myriad of lights. Ort and D materialized again at the bottom of the bed, bearing in mind I'm used to seeing them alive. So after pleasantries, I asked what was the reason for their visit. And they said they wanted me to talk about my interactions with them, my lifelong interactions. They wanted me to write a book. They said, in fact, I will write 2 books. And I said, well, I don't mind talking about my interactions with you, but I'm not a writer. And Ort said, we will continue to guide you, we will continue to teach you, and we will give you some information to be included in the book, which did at a later date. So that's the reason why then I started speaking out about it. But to get back onto my story from childhood, at 8 years old, obviously I was aware of these 2, but the next interaction, I was 9 years old. As I was one day at home, I had some friends around who'd been chatting and playing. My friends were leaving, bearing in mind it's just a year later is this, and then I said goodbye to my friends, and as I left, I turned back into my home, and I could feel an energy in the home, a vibrational frequency, a higher vibrational frequency. So I knew there was someone else in the home. So I looked around for this frequency to see if I could find it. I went upstairs, went back in the kitchen, back into the living room. It was the strongest. And I looked behind the curtains, and there was an orb there, about 4 to 6 inches across, slightly vibrating, and orangey yellow in colour. There was no communication, but I could see it quite clearly. It was a little bit perturbed by it, but not frightened. Anyway, the orb stayed for a whole week. It arrived on the Sunday afternoon, left every time I came home from school. As soon as I opened the back door, I knew it was still in the home. However, on Friday when I came home, I opened the back door and the orb had gone. But what happened next was my psychic abilities had been enhanced no end, to the point where I was able to travel outside of my body at will and separate my consciousness from my physical. And I used to do this just for simple things, to go and visit my grandparents, usually at the weekend on a Sunday. I would leave my body, fly over to their home in Liverpool, which was about 70 miles away. I would sit upstairs at a dressing room or the master bedroom, and I would look down through the floor, which was opaque. I could see my grandfather, usually on the street, reading the newspaper, watching the TV. My grandmother usually cooking in the kitchen, and I would do this every weekend. And I thought that was quite normal. Everybody did that. And it wasn't until I got to about 17 or 18 and I started asking other people if they had these abilities. And I couldn't find anybody that had any of these abilities. But then, and we didn't have the internet then, the information wasn't readily available. So I just accepted it. And then on one occasion, I got about 17 or 18. I thought, well, there must be more to this because, I use this ability all the time and nobody talks about it. It's part of who I am. So I asked D for some more information. I went to bed one evening and said, can you give me some information? And Ott came, he took hold of my hand, and we left out through the bedroom window. We flew around the subdivision and came back into the window. I could see my body asleep, went back into my body, and then woke up in the morning and I thought, well, that's cool. But I wasn't certain whether it was a dream, sleepwalking, or what. So the following evening, I did the same again. I asked him to come and show me some more things. He came, he took hold of my hand. I looked down, I could see my body asleep. And we went out further this time, down into the Leeds city centre. I recognised some of the buildings, the town hall, the hospital, the university where I worked at the time. And then we came back into the window and I could see myself asleep and I went back into my body. So the second day I woke up, I still wasn't certain whether it was just a dream or what. So I'll try it again for the third time. And I was a little bit perturbed about going out through the window because we were 3 stories up and it was concrete pavement below. So when Hawk came, I said, coming out through the roof because, we are 3 stories up and I'm still not certain whether I'm dreaming, sleepwalking. He said, yes, we'll go out through the roof. So we went out through the roof and we travelled much further this time and then came back in and I saw my body asleep. And then I realised that we are spiritual beings, and they've given me this ability to be able to separate the consciousness from the physical. And we travelled quite some distance, and he introduced me to other members of my family. I remember on one occasion he came and said to me, "Kevin, I'm going somewhere special tonight. Are you happy to go with me?" I said, "Yes, I'll go anywhere you want to go." So I took hold of his hand, and he took hold of my hand. We went out to the roof and we continued to rise and go up and up. And I could see the earth getting smaller and smaller and smaller until it almost disappeared. And then we took what I described as a right-hand turn. I'm sure it wasn't a right-hand turn, but we went into a high dimension. And when we were there was a line of 30 people. And stood in front of that line was my deceased father. And I had never seen him standing because he was always in a wheelchair from when I was born. He greeted me and he said that he was going to introduce me to my family members going back over 300 years. And there were 30 people in this line and they were all eager to see me and interact with me. But the feeling of love that emanated from this group, just tremendous, just an overwhelming feeling of love. And when my father introduced me to the group, they told me what part they played in the family, going back over, say, this 300 years, 30 generations. And when I got halfway down the line, instead of seeing a physical form, I just saw a pure conscious energy, orangey, yellow in colour, slight vibrating. I could still communicate with them telepathically, and they showed me their physical that they had when they were last in the physical. And I went right down the line, and they all did that. And then I got so confident in visiting this group, I was able to do it on my own. And I did it for a period of about 2 years. But every time I went to go and visit with them, they always wanted me to stay. And I said, no, I can't stay with you. I'm enjoying my physical, things that I need to do. But when my physical dies, I know you're here. I will come back and meet with you. So so that was another experience with Orton D. So I'm just going to turn my light on now. The sun's going down, so I need to put the light on. I'm fading away here. This is Yeah, so that was when I was like about 17 or 18. And what he was really doing was showing me that once the physical dies, we turn to our spiritual existence, as it were, or physical life, physical being at a higher vibrational frequency. And as I say, I interacted with them for over about 2 years. And then at one point I decided I wouldn't go back to see them again because I had other things to do and I was happy with the interaction. So I thought at work, I'll go back and see them and let them know that I won't be coming back. They tried to persuade me to stay again. I said I couldn't stay again. I got things to do. So I left and I've never been back since. But I know they're there. And I know when, if I need any help or assistance, I can ask for their guidance. So all quite interesting, really. But I'm sure there are other people that have these experiences, but they don't tend to speak out about it because of fear of ridicule or whatever. And probably my next six. So I've got a question.
I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. This is a theorist speaking. I've been having trouble with, so my granddaughter was unmuting this for me. This is brand new to me, so thank you very much.
Yeah, and you're automatically unmuted while the speaker's on, but on the lower side, you can always, I organized it so you can unmute yourself when you're ready to speak. That way it prevents any type of background noise.
Right. That's all I had to say. I was having trouble because I've never done that before.
That's fine, yeah, I know. It took me a while to learn how to do it. I've now been doing Zoom for a while now, and I've got used to it. But yeah, I was like, I couldn't get any sound on when I first did it, and people tried to guide me how to do it. But once we get used to these technologies, they're okay. So I mean, I'll continue on then. My next encounter, I was about 32, and I was a police officer in the UK before retiring. And one of the shifts we used to do, you'd finish at 10 o'clock at night. I'd get home for about 11:15, and then I have to be back up again at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning to be back at work for 6. And when I did those particular shifts, I would come home the following day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and be extremely tired. So I would usually go to bed about 2:30 for a couple of hours until my wife came home from work about 5:30. And on this occasion, I take my dogs out, I got into bed, and I was just about to drop off to sleep, and a shadow person came through the door. He walked through the door, and normally you'll see them out of the corner of your eye as they're hiding behind furniture, darting about. But this one actually looked me directly in the face, and he actually beckoned me like this. He beckoned me. And I said, go away, I'm tired. I've had a busy day. Go away, I'm tired. Come back later, I'm not interested. And he went through the door, obviously without opening it. And then a couple of minutes later, he came back and he beckoned me again like this. No, look, I'm tired. Leave me alone. Come and see me later. So he left again. Then he came back for a third time. And I thought, well, you've been so persistent, I will, you obviously want to show me something. I said, right, okay, I'll get it. I didn't get dressed. I got up, I opened the door, I went onto the landing, and on the landing, there was a beam of light from the floor to the ceiling. And I could describe that beam of light as like if you've seen any of the Star Trek episodes, when they beam people down to the planet, it was like that. Anyway, I said, well, you've gone to all this trouble to get me to see this light, I'll step in it. So I stepped in the beam of light. And when I stepped in that beam of light, there was a feeling of euphoria. I felt just euphoric, and all the tiredness disappeared. And then a voice spoke to me and said, I am your father, you are your father's son. And that confused me for many years. I didn't know at that time. I thought it was perhaps my deceased father communicating with me, but it wasn't. I found out later his name is Ra. He's an Anunnaki, and he's a ninth dimensional being. And I have interacted with him since then. On a few occasions. In fact, I channeled him on one occasion at a conference. But that was probably my next experience in relation to using these abilities that they've obviously given me. And I'm sure we all have these abilities. We just don't use them, or we're not aware of them. But I won't speak out about them because of fear of that ridicule. And I say, probably I didn't, but now I do. I'm quite happy. I think probably they also taught me how to travel on the astral plane. separating my consciousness from my physical is just normal to me. It's like I always enjoy going to bed because I can go where I want to go. It's like two lives. And I remember traveling on the astral plane on one occasion, and I'll meet Aunt D on the astral plane. On one occasion, they came to me and invited me on a craft. And I went onto the craft, and the craft itself was conscious. As I went through the skin to feel the conscious energy of the skin of the craft. The inside was Aunt D, the two beings that I met when I was 8, but I only saw them as pure conscious energy orbs. And I asked them, how do you see me? And they said, you, Kevin, the same as the pure conscious energy orb. So I said, let me see if I understand this correctly. We're traveling out of the body on the astral plane as pure conscious energy orbs, as two different species. And they said, yes, that's correct. And we're interacting this way. I said, yes. And I met them many times doing that. And then on one occasion, they gave me a message for a Dr. Stephen Greer. And I didn't know Dr. Stephen Greer, and I still don't know him now. But, they said, would you convey a message for us? I said, yes, I will do. I said, what's the message? Well, it's for Dr. Stephen Greer, and they wanted him to change his itinerary for a specific day and date. Yes, I can do that. Anyway, I left the craft, I came back, I went back into my own body, and when I woke up at that moment, when I went back into my body, and I wrote the message down, the time, the date, and who it was for Dr. Greer, and then I went back to sleep. I woke up in the morning, and I looked at the note, and I thought, I'm not going to do that. There's no way am I going to pass a message. So I screwed the message up, and I threw it in the trash, and I thought, that's the end of that. The following evening, Aunt D came to me in a dream and said, Kevin, it's very important that you convey this message to Dr. Stephen Greer. If you do not, it may come to some harm on that day. So that put me in a dilemma there, and had about 4 or 5 days, 6 days before the date when they said he would possibly come to some harm. So I thought, well, if I contact this guy and he thinks I'm delusional, or I've got mental health problems, I can live with that. If, however, I don't convey the message and he does come to some harm, or even dies on that day, I could never live with myself. So I decided to convey the message. So then it was, how do I contact this guy? I don't know him. So very often I find that they will point me in the right direction. So I went to my computer, I went onto YouTube, and I put Dr. Stephen's name in. And the first video that came up was of a conference he did in Washington, I believe, about disclosure. And sat next to him was an English guy from near where I lived in England, and he was also a police officer in a local town. So I thought, there's the connection. So I got his phone number. I told him the story, and he was non-judgmental whatsoever, and he conveyed the message to Dr. Stephen Greer. And within an hour, I got a response from him. I did ask when Aunt D asked me to convey the message. I said, Dr. Greer will want to know who the message is from. And they said, tell him it's the light beings. At that point, I'd never heard that term, the light beings. So he did ask that question, and I said to tell him that it was from the light beings. He did respond within an hour via the third party, Gary, and he said he thanked me for the message, and then he included a photograph of a light being. He said he would take the message under consideration, and then he included a photograph of a light being that he had taken while he was out on a field trip. So it really brought the two together, really. So I was quite happy with that. So, but I did ask them why they'd given me the message, and they said, hey, well, they wanted to see if I would convey the message, and I did. So, and that was probably a turning point. I do get messages from time to time. I don't particularly like conveying messages, but I do that from time to time. So, yeah, so really just more interaction with them, really. And then over the past few years of stepped up interaction, they've introduced me to a group of 8 ETs. I actually first met them when I was 14 years old. They are like a galactic council, and their names are Ort, D, Arna, Zark, Ra, Targ, Chica, and all. And I've met them all. I met them first when I was 14. I had a paper round, and what used to happen, I would come out of the house to go and do the paper round, and a craft would appear direct from my home. And then a second craft would always appear from the opposite direction and meet up with the first one. I would do my paper round, and they would follow me around the paper round. When I'd finished, one would probably go back in the opposite direction, and one would just straight up into space. And this happened almost every day. And I knew that there were other beings around me. I could feel the vibrational frequencies, again, because I was sensitive to that. So I asked them, right, can you show yourself? I know, yeah. And two small beings appeared, two small, what we call greys. And I said, what do you want? I wasn't frightened. A little apprehensive, possibly, but it didn't bother me. And there was a group of people that would like to speak with you. I said, well, I've got to finish my paper round. I've got to go to school later on this morning. I've got to be back for that. They said, well, we won't keep you long, and then we'll bring you back in time for school. So I finished the paper round, and we went up into a mothercraft, and I was shown into. So we went to the hangar. The hangar was huge, and there was all these different sizes of craft there, different shapes and sizes. And there was a small grey working on one of the craft, and he waved at me. So I waved back, being polite, and I know who he is now. I didn't at that moment in time. And then I was led down into a big amphitheatre. And in the amphitheatre at the front was a table with these 8 beings on that I've mentioned. And I thought I was just there being paraded as a small human boy with the different ETs to see the human. And it turns out later that I realise now this group of 8 ETs are a council, a group of 8 representing different beings, really, I suppose, different sections of our galaxy. They say they're responsible for the security and organization of this quadrant of our galaxy. So I introduced to all of them, and then I was okay until I got to Chica, because he's a praying mantis type being, and I was a little perturbed by that. But Anna Kay, she who's an empath and a healer, she came up. She recognised my fear, my trepidation. She came up and tried to calm me down in relation to seeing Chica. And then after the introduction, I left, and I went back. They took me back. I got back about 25 minutes later than I normally would from doing paper round. I got to school on time, and that was the first interaction with the 8. And I've been interacting with them again on and off throughout my life, and more recently. But now they also connect with my wife. My wife's never had any contact, but over the past few years, Zark, he moves her personal items around the home, and asked why he did that. And he said that he liked teasing her. He thought it was funny, but there was a serious side to it, and the serious side was to let her know that we are here, we are amongst you. And then not so long ago, I think it was last year, I was getting up out of bed, and I thought, I'll just see if I can contact the group of 8. And I was unable to, but I contacted a small craft that was flying past, and on the craft was about 5 or 6 small greys, and piloting the craft was Tia, the guy that waved to me when I was 14. And I've met him in the past before, but on this occasion, so we had some interaction, and I asked what they were doing in this location, and they said we were in the area, we changed direction to come and see where you live. But so we can't stay. And said goodbye. Nothing unusual for me, quite normal for me. But then when we get up in the morning, Sandy goes outside, she has tea. I go outside and have a cup of coffee. Sandy's sat there drinking her tea, and she said, "You missed the most beautiful rainbow this morning." It was at the back of our home. We've got 5 acres, and it went from one fence on the ground all the way over to the other fence at the end of the 5 acres. I said, "Oh, did you get a photograph?" She said, "Yes." I took the iPad out, and I went and got a photograph of it. And then she said, "But you won't believe what happened next." I said, "No, what happened next?" So a craft appeared under the rainbow. I said, "Oh, did you get a photograph?" She said, "Yeah, I did." She said, "I was taking a photo, and I lifted up the iPad, took a picture, and then it obviously disappeared. But it was there for that split second. But then when we looked at the time on the photograph, it was 8:30, the same time when I was actually speaking with Ort, who was piloting the craft. So some confirmation there, both for me and for Sandy, in relation to the communication, really. And included it in a few other things now. We had some friends doing a meditation. When we finished the meditation, Sandy decided to take some photographs. She took 3 sequentially, and on the middle one there was 5 large orbs. And these are, I believe, 5 of the beings that I communicate with. And on some of them, you can actually see the faces inside the orbs, and the orbs are quite large orbs. So quite interesting. But we do have quite a bit of activity at the back of our house. On one occasion, I have a friend who's a retired detective, and he's been a skeptic all his life. He always thinks I'm just a bit unusual, but a friend, very good friend. And I remember they were over here a couple of years ago on vacation, and we were all 4 of us sat by the pool. It was my wife, my friend, and his wife. And I went to the refrigerator to get 2 beers. And I said to them, now would be a good time to show a craft for my skeptic friend. I came back, I put the beers down, and we sat down, and a craft appeared. And it started at one side of the property, flew quickly, darted across, darted again, and then darted upwards, and then straight up into space, as it were. And my friend was just gobsmacked, absolutely unbelievable. But he said, did anybody else see that? And we all saw it. And then shortly after that, he was here again, and there was a full blood red moon. And his wife took a photograph of the blood red moon. And on the photograph were these 5 or 6 beautiful big orbs. And now he's changed from a total skeptic to having an understanding. And he's now got an open mind, and he's inquisitive and knows there's much more to who we are. One might say he's been awakened. So quite interesting, really. I have many more stories I could tell you, but we probably don't really have time today. So I don't know whether we have any questions in relation to those experiences that I've given you, because they cover quite a few years, really. And I do have contact with deceased family members as well. The ET is just part of the whole consciousness thing. And the whole thing that they've taught me is one of consciousness in how we are connected. They also give me, there are many different modalities of contact they use, downloads. I remember on one occasion they gave me a download of the quantum unified field theory, which I knew nothing about. And if I remember correctly, they said that your scientist's understanding of quantum unified field theory is correct. However, now it's well since I thought about it. But anyway, they up to the what they told me, and I said to them, I said, if this is correct, can you show me a craft of confirmation? And a craft appeared. So I went inside to get Sandy. Sandy came out and said, I'll be still there. Anyway, the craft was still there, and a second one appeared, a third one, a fourth one, a fifth one, 7 in total appeared, flew silently over our heads, and then took a 80-degree turn, moved off, and sequentially disappeared as they had appeared. So quite interesting, really. And I've had other downloads, and again, I asked for confirmation. If they give me telepathic communication, I always ask for confirmation, and I've learned over the years how to do that, and it makes communication a lot more convenient, really. So,
Kevin, those are amazing personal experiences, and thank you for sharing them. If you want to go ahead right now, it's up to you to do question and answer. We can do that. And if we do that now, I will unmute everybody, and they can, as if we're in a living room, they can speak up and ask questions. Is that okay, Kevin?
Yeah, that's fine. Anything you want.
Well, I want to make sure everybody is happy with the way that goes, and I want to make sure you're happy with the way that goes.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to unmute everybody, and I'm learning this program, so bear with me. Okay. So you're all unmuted.
All those experiences are very similar experiences.
Yeah.
I have never spoken to anybody about it. So, and now I'm meeting more and more experiences. It's just opened up a whole new world, which I didn't know was there, and I wouldn't have spoken out about it. I'd have gone to my grave. I already know what my next physical going to be like. Part of it they've already shown me. So I was ready to move on, you know. So hey ho, I'm still here, and I'll continue in this physical until I finish my work.
Yeah, thank you. It's very exciting. I mean, that's very similar to what my own star people tell me about vibrational qualities of the earth and vibrational qualities of the different dimensions. So that's why we're all here too, is to share our stories as well. And right now, I'm going to open the Zoom to questions, Kevin, and you can go ahead and start speaking, and we're going to see if that works. If not, if that doesn't work, then we'll do the hand raising icon. So.
Well,
These bright neon lights all the way around it. The triangle, it's bright red, then bright white, and it just moves silently. So I suspect the thought that I thought was my own, which was I've had a lot of chickens in, but they gave me that thought, and that's part of telepathic communication. And what they were doing was giving me a lesson in communication, in thought, in consciousness itself, in how it can be used. So that's just another example. And then obviously out of body travel, they taught me how to separate the physical, the consciousness from the physical. And I believe we can all do this. We all have this ability. We just taught how to do it. And then the physical
So, like, how do you do it?
How do you do it? I can explain that if you want. How I can explain how I do it. What I do, I usually do it of an evening. We can do it any time of day. I relax. I open my mind, and then I look inward. And as I look inward, I continue to relax, and then continue to move further and further down inside myself. And then what will happen? I will select an eye, like an opening, and then instead of going downwards into myself, I then go through the opening. And once I go through that opening on the other side, then I'm completely on the astral plane, astral traveling, or out of body traveling, as some people call it. And again, I did that naturally because they taught me how to do that when I was 9. But anybody can learn that technique and do it yourself. I remember speaking to a attorney. She was a retired attorney at one of the conferences, and she was asking the same question, and I gave her the same description, and said to me, "Well, Kevin, I get to that eye, I see the eye, but I don't go through it." I said, "Well, unless you relinquish that fear and go through the eye, you won't be able to travel on the astral plane." So she said she was going to try it. I never heard back whether she was successful or not, but that's how I do it, and I'll continue to do that today. Yes. So, and then I think of the other contacts now, they use near-death experience as well. Fortunately, I've never had one of those, but I know that I've met a few people that have, and they're sort of with all the information about consciousness and have an instant understanding of who we are, the different levels of consciousness, and that we're all connected to source energy, to God, or
At the one point, I was saying, "Well, if you're going to take me now." Would you think that was that could possibly have been an encounter? And why in the heck, if they knew or I was in stress situation, why wouldn't they have done that at the point?
Well, yes, I think, but my own personal opinion, I wasn't there obviously, but I would suspect that's a contact, and I suspect they did that to help you. They obviously saw you in some distress, and I'm sure that maybe that little bit of fear that came in made you strive further and become stronger to get to where you needed to go. And maybe they were guiding you, letting them know that they were there to assist and help you. They do show themselves in, as I say, many modalities and many points of contact. So yeah, and very often if you are on your own, they do that. Although I have known groups be together and they show crafts and things. But yes, I'm sure that was a contact with the higher conscious beings, ETs, angelics, the elementals. There's so many different realms out there. And it's really just opening up that slight difference in vibrational frequency. So what was your thought on it, George? What did you think?
What did I think?
Mm.
Well, as I was walking down there, I was afraid I was going to succumb to the cold, frankly. But I saw this coming closer to me, and this was dancing for at least an hour, probably an hour and a half. And it kept coming closer, but never came close enough. But I would say, "Okay, come on." And finally, I was just watching it, and I thought later on when I just so happened I was very lucky. A rancher came along and he was just happened to be up, and he said, "We're never here. We're never here." He's just happened to be out here at this particular time because they were coming home from a convention, and there was another road going up to the other side of the mountain, and I came right beyond that T. I was a quarter of a mile beyond that T, or they'd have never found me. But anyway, all of a sudden, when the truck appeared, about 10 minutes before the truck appeared, it picked me up. They disappeared. Do you suppose maybe they knew that the truck was on the way that was going to rescue me or something?
Oh, without a doubt. I can tell you a story that Dr. Joseph Burks told me. And he was with a friend, I think it was in Peru somewhere, and they were going out on a field trip. And they were traveling to this location. And the guy that was driving the truck, he got a telepathic message saying, pull the truck over immediately to the side of the road. He pulled over to the side of the road. A vehicle came round the bend, a blind bend on the wrong side of the road. It would have wiped them out and killed them. So yeah, they do. They look after us, and they do have communication with us, but very often we don't recognise it. But clearly, on that occasion, Dr. Joseph Burks had many occasions of contact, and obviously his friend who he was traveling with as well. And to be able to have that level of understanding of a telepathic communication, you have to have had to learn that, and to be able to trust it as well. And I know of another occasion with a lady from Australia, Lauren Kurtz, she'll tell you the story. She was out driving with her husband was driving. She got the kids in the back of the car in Australia, middle of nowhere. And she said to her husband, pull over. He said, what for? Said, well, the ETs have just told me they're going to show me a craft. So he said, he was reluctant to pull over. He said, there's no craft, there's nothing there. She said, just pull over. They've told me they're going to show me a craft and they want me to take a photograph. So he stopped the vehicle. She got out. A craft appeared. She took a photograph. Now that there was a confirmation for her of the telepathic communication, and she's an experienced 84. But it was also confirmation for the husband and the children as a family to know that a mum's not delusional. She is speaking to these higher conscious beings, and you as a family have now had evidence of that. They are contacting, and they've told me recently they are contacting more and more individuals, and I've had some experience of that. And there'll be more and more mass sightings leading up to the major reveal when they reveal themselves globally to everybody. So, so I'm sure they were there, and if you'd have been in any serious difficulty, they may well have intervened and assisted you. They may have even assisted you, and you don't know. How long did it take you to cover the 16 miles?
And you break an ankle or even sprain an ankle, you might as well that's it. You're gonna die.
Yeah, so very fortunate. I would suspect they were there to assist you.
Yeah, George, this is Suzanne speaking. I don't know if this has happened to you, the description of your experience, but when I had gone to the Pine Ridge conference, when I came back, it must have been 6 months. Everything started unfolding for me, where I had heightened awarenesses and I had these experiences, of multidimensionality that came really into the 3D world. And so, did that event happen to you after you left the conference?
After I left there, the following day, I went down to Lander, and then I stayed in Lander, and nothing really happened. But I went over to Cheyenne, and I drove home from Cheyenne. No, I can't say anything happened except I was very aware. I was when I get out to Wyoming and South Dakota, I'm very aware anyway.
Well, I was just trying to tie into a lot of people who are continuing to keep in touch that they've had a lot of ET experiences and they've had a lot of experiences that really open them up.
I was hoping to.
Other questions, they're welcome to shout out.
I have a question. I wondered whether or not you have any feelings or sensitivities about this coronavirus and the pandemic that seems to be sweeping the world, and what have the ETs told you about that?
Good question.
Okay, I did ask them the other day. Down, so I tend to tell me something, I'll write it down because very often I forget it. So if you just bear with me, and I'll read what they say. But I've written it in like a third party. I have been informed we will get through this, meaning the virus. There will be a shift in our level of consciousness, and our societies will change for the better. There will be more upheaval before we reach this point. But this will be a positive outcome for all. Stay safe. That was the message that they gave me the other day when I asked them.
That's exactly the downloading I'm getting, and Greg Brady that as well. That it's an event. It's like a reset.
Like a reset, yes. And I think what's happening, not only we are resetting our conscious levels, we're being elevated. People are becoming more community orientated because we've all been isolated now, and it's altering our perception of our societies. And I think there'll also be a financial resetting of our society's finances, because they seem to be corrupt anyway, and just help the few. And we need to help. There's plenty of money to go around on this planet if we share it out and we change our understanding of who we are in relation to consciousness and what's really important to us. And I'm sure now that we're all being isolated in our own homes with our own families and having limited connection with others, the important things of who we are and what's important to us as individuals, family, friend, food, water, housing, all these are important. And it's important to us, they're important to everybody. But collectively as a community, this, as awful as it is, this pandemic, it will bring the society closer together, I'm sure. According to my ETs, it will be for the better. They haven't given me a time scale. Perhaps I will have to ask that. But from their perspective, it will be positive when we do come out the other side. But I'm sure there'll be a lot that lose their lives as well.
Nice, thank you. Anybody else have any other questions?
Yes, this is Sarah. It's not a question, it's more of an observation. I feel like we are moving into high gear with the shift, and this is part of that. Does anybody else want to respond to that?
I would agree with you entirely there, Thera. Yes, entirely.
Yeah, I agree totally, Thera. I think we've had conversations around that, and the vibrations I feel have always been getting quicker and quicker. Been getting quicker, and I completely agree with what you just said. What about Carol? Carol, I know that you channel a large group of consciousness.
Yeah.
They have you what?
So we actually had our Facebook Live right before I joined this one, and James is a singular name, but it is a collective of consciousnesses that speak through me. They've not given me a number; they just say it's a lot. And so this was about an hour and a half length of a Facebook Live, and they talked about not raising. Well, they talked about leveling up, and they said basically what we did with this thing being in the world right now is not our the people that live here now and that are alive, and they call us personalities. We have lived a life that is contributing to future generations. So what is happening now is coming from previous generations. But what has happened with this global focus in the amount of time, the short amount of time it took our vibration from here, our normal, regular, collective vibration, and it dropped it. They said it plummeted so quickly. When that happens, it reverberates around the world, but it also shoots forward into the future. And they, meaning consciousness, made a decision that is not what they are wanting for our world that they created. The impacts that could be manifested in the future are not what they want. And so they are doing things like having these conversations, channeling, bringing more positivity into the world in a lot of different ways to cause a shift. But it's a shift that's bringing us leveling up back to at least where we were, to stabilize and to counteract that plummet so that future generations don't feel it so harshly. but also they talk so much about positivity, changing your outlook, changing your focus now, because collectively we can raise our vibration. So by the time this thing manifests as something else later, we've widened the gap, and our perspective on it will be lighter and easier, and so our response to it will be more beneficial for all.
Yeah, Carol, I completely understand what you're saying. I mean, my store people have downloaded for many years, especially now I'm seeing it unfolding, that there's a quicker manifestation coming from our higher selves when we're in sync with that part of ourselves and we're trying to manifest. It's very quick. And so what I'm told is right now we can manifest in a very real way the world that we want. Where maybe 100 years ago, the recipe for us wasn't quite that way. But right now, because everything is so acute, everybody's attention is on themselves, maybe not through fear all the time, but it's a very acute, immediate awareness right now that everybody has. So right now, it creates kind of like an opening, a door opening to manifest what you want, as long as it's in alignment.
Yeah. So what they're saying too is that right now they are flowing an abundance of their vibrational frequency into our physical planet, into our physicality, to bring us back up from this plummet that we experienced or that we created. But we, by making the conscious decision, and they said, we're giving you this information so that you can make a conscious choice to change the subject now, to change your perspective and change your conversations now, so that we are helping to create that longer lasting influence. And it was just an amazing message today.
Thank you, Carol. Anybody else have any questions for Kevin or any comments about the thoughts that are coming up right now?
Yeah, Suzanne, it's Anita.
Anita, your audio is not coming in very clearly.
Oh dear. Okay.
That's better. That's better.
Is it better now? Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
I had a very unusual experience last night. I've been reading the Afterlife Revolution by Whitley Strieber, and I'm about 3/4 through it, maybe even more than that. And I was sitting in the living room. George actually had dozed off, and all of a sudden, at this time of year, this white moth came in and started flying around my lamp. And I just was going, "Where is this coming from?" And so I put up the lamp, and I got close, and I kind of saying a couple of words to it. And I went back to sit down.
Anita, you're fading out again.
Okay, so I went back to sit down out on the couch, and the next thing I knew, I looked over to my right, and this moth was now outside my patio door, just dancing and like looking to get my attention. I'm sorry, but I never saw a moth with a body like that, because I was seeing the bottom part of it. It was so strong. And one thing that I'd like Kevin to, talk about too is that, so these things have been happening to me. I've been dreaming of my mother almost every single night, who of course has passed for 25 years. And that never happened to me before. But in Straber's book, he talks about, and Anne talks about with him, that these visitations often come with people who are dead, and that the dead that are coming to make contact with people often have visitations of ETs along with them. Kevin, have you found that?
Yes, there's a link obviously between the different realms of consciousness, and that extends to the animal realm, the bird realms and things. I had a visit from about 12. No, now the vultures. We have vultures around here, but there was about 12 on the roof one day. I went out to have a look, and as my wife went out, they flew off. And as I said, we've got 5 acres with a fence at the back there, and each one landed on one of the fence posts and was looking away from my property. So I thought I'll go out and take a photograph. As I got halfway to them, the first one turned and outstretched its wings, and the second one turned and outstretched its wings, and they went right down the line to do that. I've never seen that behaviour before, and I didn't know what it was. I took the photograph from some distance. I didn't move any closer. I didn't know whether it was a threat. But then I asked a friend of mine if she knew what that was, and she said, yes, that's a totem. And that's very often a sign of respect. And very often it is ETs that show themselves as birds, as owls, as vultures, as moths, as other insects even. And I had an experience with a small dragonfly that got caught in a piece of netting, and I tried to cut it free and I couldn't get it out. So I went in to get some scissors, and I managed to get it. After about 5-10 minutes, I was managed to free the dragonfly, and it was only a small one, beautiful bright green blue colours, and it flew off. And I thought that's the end of that. And then later on in the day, I was out walking my dogs, and this dragonfly, exactly the same size, came and flew around me through my legs. I went and sat on the porch. It flew around the porch, and then I held my hand out to see if it would come and land on my hand, and it hovered about half an inch. And I believe that was the dragonfly that I'd released from the netting. But then what happened? Every time I went out, the dragonflies followed me everywhere I went. I'd go and sit on the front porch, and the dragonflies would fly around me. Unbelievable. I'd walk past where feeding, and they'd all leave and follow me. And then later on, about a few months later, I was pressure washing my driveway, and this big 6-inch dragonfly, it was huge, came up with all the same colours. It flew around me, through my legs, and landed on my head. I did that 3 times. And I believe that that was another totem in relation to a connection with consciousness, to the other realms, and a form of communication. I told my brother that, who's a retired aircraft engineer, and he's aware of all my experiences, although he's never had any. And he was very skeptic about that. And he said one day, only a few weeks ago, he was sat on his porch, and a beautiful butterfly came past, and it flew outside. He said to it, can you come back? It's such a beautiful butterfly. And it flew back again. And then it did that for 3 times. And then he said, right, it's such a beautiful butterfly. Can you come and land on my hand? And he held his hand out, and the butterfly landed on his hand. Now, he wouldn't have done that if I hadn't heard that story. And that's sharing the story of consciousness in how we're all connected. And that's very often, you have to look for the signs. And very often, I'm sure that the story with Whitley Strieber is amazing. It's his wife. I'm sure you know the story, how she appeared as a white moth, and she appeared 2 or 3 times at that conference. And once we realize that, then we are all connected, then we don't have any fear of the physical death, because we don't die. We are connected to the animals, the plants, the trees. It broadens your whole perspective. And I just sit out sometimes in a chair on the front porch and just amazed at the wonder and sit and what's going on around you. But all this is being created by consciousness and shared consciousness. So, but if we are awoken to it, or awakened to it, I'm not quite sure the right term, but then it goes beyond that. It goes beyond to the angelic realm, the angels or whatever, and the ETs. And there are many ETs throughout our universe. And again, we're all connected to them, and hopefully we will get to that level where they will become part of. They've already been a part of my life, all my life, but we need to expand that understanding of consciousness, so we all grow together and we interact. And I'm very confident in the future that this will happen. And they've already told me they're happy to share their technologies with us and help us. They're very concerned about Fukushima and the radiation, the pollution of the radiation of the Pacific Ocean. They've got technologies, they say, that can help negate all to move forward. And there are many groups like this. I speak to quite a few now, and A lot of them are just small groups, but they're all coming together and sharing and understanding. And there are many experiences actually speaking out about. So, I mean, just an amazing time to be here in this particular space-time dimension, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so but I feel very fortunate to be here, and I feel very fortunate that they've shared the information with me, and I feel fortunate I can share it with others now. So they're just stories of experiences, like you go to the coast with your family and tell that story. That's all I'm doing. That's all they've asked me to do. I asked them, and I said on one occasion, well, if I tell my stories and or my experiences and people don't believe me, they said, well, it doesn't matter, Kevin. You've done what we've asked. We've asked you to share your experiences, and those that are ready to accept it will accept it and go further. So, okay, so that's what I do. That's why I'm here speaking to you today.
I might have missed it, but what did your parents know about the experiences you were having as a child, and you know, what were the conversations that you had? You say your brother knows your experiences now, but as a child, were you did you tell your family?
No, I told my brother, but on a couple of occasions, because I thought he would be seeing the things that I saw or feeling the vibrational frequencies, but he didn't. And we did speak about it throughout our lives together. And I only spoke to it once to my mother when Aunt D materialized in the bathroom when I was 8, and she said it was just my imagination. Unfortunately, my father died when I was 9, so we didn't have any of those conversations. But I've had many conversations with him after his passed, and I've met him on numerous occasions. I know where he is. I know he helps me. I know he assists me, and all our shared family consciousness are there to help and assist. We just need to know that they are there. And if you open up to that and look for the signs and acknowledge the signs, then we have a better understanding, really. And that's what it's all about. It's this true consciousness that's the key to us as a species.
Thank you very much, Kevin. 23 right now. So we want to have at least half an hour of Star Nation meetup time too. And are there any other questions?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Suzanne? Okay. Kevin, when we were at the conference in July, you had mentioned at that time that you got a message while you were there that there was going to be some kind of announcement at the United Nations in February. Well, now, of course, our world's been turned upside down, but you had received, do you remember giving us that message when you were
I do, yes, I do. I can explain that briefly. On February last year, I was woken up on February the 1st by a craft above the house. And normally they're very quiet, but this was a very loud noise and it woke me up. And it was February the 1st. I looked at the clock and it was 1:11 a.m. They gave me a telepathic message saying that they were wanting to meet with our United Nations ambassadors in New York. And then I asked them, I went into my bathroom and I asked them to repeat the message to show that I understood it. And again, they repeated it. And then I said, if that's correct, can you turn the street light off? And the street light went off outside the bathroom. So I said, what about the time and the date? And they said, we'll give you the information later. And then in the morning, about 7:45, I was woken up by 2 beings jumping on the bed, or 1 being jumping on twice, and it woke me up. They gave me the second time part of the information, so I've now got the location, the date, and the time. And again, it was daylight then, so I said, to confirm this information you've given me, you've now got the date, time, and location. Can you turn the street light on? Bearing in mind it was daylight, and the street light came on. I've used that mode of contact before, and it works very well. So then they asked me to contact several people in different groups. So I conveyed that message to these different groups, and with the time and date. And then later on in the year, about September, December time, I think, they asked me to contact the United Nations in relation to their request to meet with the ambassadors at the UN. I contacted the office then of Nicholas Hedman, the chairman of the Outer Space Affairs Committee in Vienna, and I did receive a reply, and I asked if there was a protocol in place to receive these 8 ET ambassadors that wished to meet with our ambassadors. And he replied saying there was no protocol in place at this time. So I then replied and asked me how would we implement the protocol and to facilitate this. And he replied saying we would have to get a member state to propose that mandate at one of the UN meetings. So in relation to that, I contacted then Nikki Haley, the UN ambassador to the United Nations, and but I didn't receive a reply. She was at the end of the term of her office and she left shortly afterwards. After that, but they'd got the information, and then the date they gave me was February the 1st, 2020, and I asked them what was important about the date of February the 1st, and they said it was February the 2nd that was a significant date. It was the first dawn of new humanity. I thought that was quite profound. But then what happened with that information? They asked me again to contact the United Nations with this date. So I wrote again to Nicholas Hedman's office, and I also wrote to Dr. DePippo at the United Nations in Washington. And a friend of mine, Faith, from the conference in South Dakota, she was in Washington, and she kept going into the United Nations to get me an email so I could email someone. And eventually she went in 8 times. They kept giving her the runaround. She got the email of Dr. DePippo. So she gave that to me. I emailed Dr. DePippo with all the information when they wanted to meet February the 1st in New York at the United Nations. And about 10 days after that, Terry Lovelace contacted me. And he's a retired assistant attorney general and a retired law professor. He's also an experiencer from the age of 4, which I didn't know at the time. And he said he'd had information from his ET guides that they wanted to meet as well on February the 1st at New York at the United Nations. So he was confirming my message. I told him I'd written to Dr. DePippo, and he said, I know Dr. DePippo. I will write to him as well, confirming the dates. So he wrote as well. So now we had 2 people given the same date and obviously writing to Dr. DePippo. Neither of us received a reply, although Terry Lovelace has communicated with Dr. DePippo in the past and he's had information returned to him. I didn't only receive a reply from the chairman of the Outer Space Affairs Committee saying that they'd received the email, but they didn't respond to it this time. But that's not understanding because there's huge content there saying that 8 ET ambassadors wish to meet with our ambassadors. There's a huge leap there. But the thing is, we've been given the information. And I found out later that had been tried some years ago by a guy, I forget his name now, and he was given all the same information. And he contacted the United Nations at that time, and it didn't happen. But they also did say that there would be a mass sighting in New York. I went up to New York that weekend and there wasn't one. But however, I was in New York in August on a vacation, and I was sat in the bedroom of the hotel in Manhattan, and I'd just read a post by Dr. Joseph Burks about experiences that had a dream. And the dream was that the ET craft appeared globally over the major cities on the same day. I'd had that 3 times in my life. So I responded to the post. I put my phone down on the bed and I looked out of the window. And through 2 skyscrapers overlooking Central Park, about 15 crafts appeared. They formed a pattern, they disappeared, they reappeared, formed another pattern. I believe that was my own personal reveal, as it were, in August, and I was anticipating another one in February the 1st. I did go up there, I was in the park, I met with a producer friend of mine who was up there, and he came to film, but the cloud was so low you couldn't see the top of the buildings. But he said, well, we'll do an interview. I'm doing a documentary about UFOs and ETs, and we'll include your interview and the story of the reveal. Well, that was good. I thought that was positive. And then I think on the same day, Dr. Stephen Greer had asked for a global CE5 for all people globally to come out on February the 1st. And then I'd also been involved with Dean Caparella. He was doing Aliens Revealed online summit. We'd got 28 people of the leading ologists, if you want to call them that. And he was going to produce that free for everybody to watch on January the 17th, 18th, and 19th. He had technical issues, technical problems, and it ended up being the weekend of the 1st of February. So, coincidence or what, I don't know. But then the following day on February the 2nd, I don't know what's the football or what's the Super Bowl because we were on vacation, and about 60-70% of the advertisements or the commercials were about ETs. They had ETs in all the commercials. And they continue to contact individuals. There will be more major sightings, mass sightings, and that is going on. In fact, I had a lady that Rebecca Renfrew, I think she spoke once at the Ed Casey conference, and she was going to copy of my book once, and she opened the book. She felt an urge to open the book at the back, and there's a sketch of Alton D there, and she said, "I know these two, I've met them." So she got my email. We met up with her husband. I went down with Kathy Martin and her husband, and we went for lunch, and we compared our notes, identical. And she had information that you would only have if you had actually met with Alton D and given information. This last weekend, I went to a small group meeting of experiencers. I think there was about 10 of us there at this meeting, and I was showing a small interview I did with Susan Chapter. And there's a lady there who was an experiencer, and she was in her 80s. And she said, "Kevin, I've been asked to come and give you a message." I said, "Okay." Well, I went to my dentist last week, and my dentist is a friend as well, and my dentist was telling me she had two ET beings come into her surgery to have her teeth examined, their teeth examined, and she knew they were ETs by their appearance. And the person that was giving me the message says, "I've just read the book by Kevin Briggs, The Spiritual Consciousness: A Personal Journey. And there's a sketch in the back of the book. I will go and get the book." She got the book, the vehicle, showed it to the dentist and the staff, and said, "Yes, those were the two people that came into our office." So again, they're doing exactly what they're saying. They're contacting more people. And I now have another lady who was given a download about quantum unified field theory. She knew nothing of it before. We had a discussion about it when I met her. Because again, they're contacting more people, more sightings, and they did inform me. I questioned why they didn't show up on February the 1st, and they said that the reveal is a process. It's not one event. It is ongoing, and it will continue with mass sightings, and it will continue with us connecting with individuals. So, although I was disappointed, I still feel that all the information was positive. The information I was given was shared with all the other groups in relation to the information I had. So, from my perspective, I would have liked to see a mass sighting so everybody saw it over New York, but it didn't happen. But I'm still confident in all the information they've been given, and I continue to keep getting the confirmation. I mean, to meet a dentist, and the dentist was interested in my story, so I was giving her email, and I emailed her the other day, and at some point I'm sure we'll communicate. So, but they're in control, they know what's going on. I'm sure they've got their own timeline, their own agenda, and we'll all just keep working towards it, I'm sure.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin. We're going to round up or wind down a little bit
Okay.
right now. I really appreciate your time spent, your expertise, and your personal sharing here. I want to give you a clap.
Thank you.
And so,
Thank you.
to keep in touch.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. And so, we're going to close down. Everybody's here. Welcome to stay. We're going to have a very short Star Nation meeting here. This is part of the Star Nation meetup. Now, I do want to flash a few screen shares here. One of Kevin's book. Now, bear with me. I'm just learning a lot of this Zoom technology. Now, can everybody see his book up here?
Yes.
Yes.
In the chat, and there's a chat button at the bottom. If you open that up and go to the very top of the chat, there's a link, there's a URL to kevinjbriggs.com, his website, if you want to check any other um, great stuff that he has to share on his website about consciousness and about ET experiences. He has an event and media page, there's a review page. And so that's a great website to explore. And then also, we were talking about the All Nation Gathering Center, the Pine Ridge Conference that several people here were at. And this is their website too. So that's an interesting thing to share right now. So you guys can have some reference about what we're talking about. And then this right here is the Star Nation meetup. It's out of Pittsburgh. We're getting more of an international, uh, membership too. So anybody here who's not already a member of the Star Nation meetup is welcome to join through the primary page that I just showed you. And we do have monthly meetings. They will be obviously Zoom, until I hear otherwise. So I want to thank everybody for joining. I hope you enjoyed the time here. I highly suggest all practitioners here to start learning Zoom. You can, teach workshops and conduct business even on Zoom. I've done a few mediumship sessions on Zoom. So that's about it. Now, do you all want to stay for the meeting itself? And I do want to give a shout out to Athera here. She is a Star Nation meetup member. Carol is, and there's also Cindy and her husband Roy is here. Cindy, you want to raise your hand a little bit? And we have Sanford who just tuned in.
Sanford.
As you can see, Kevin, we have some older people. They're not all young people. All have stories, I'm sure, about maybe being CO2'd almost by mentioning the ETs maybe when we were 20, But so we're going to start the meeting now, if that's okay. Anything else you want to mention about Kevin before we start the meeting?
I would just say with my website, I've got some interviews on there, and two of them have a channel. If you go to the events and media, if you're interested in channeling, there were two on there. They were about 30 minutes long, and I just fell into that accidentally. It wasn't something I was purposely trying to do or whatever, but I've been doing it for a couple of years now. But they're quite an interesting introduction to channeling. If that's on there, if you want to watch them. So some interviews there, but they're a bit long.
Can everybody see the page?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, I can see it.
I don't know why it's down there now, but I don't know what's going on here. Okay, is the page off the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're good.
I'm learning. So ahead and start the meetup itself, and like I said, anybody's welcome to continue. And Rick, are you a member of the meetup itself? Rick Kemp?
I didn't go ahead and actually make the trek online to get into the group itself. I've just been paying attention and participating when available.
Yeah, you've been to a few meetings, and I really enjoy that you're participating. So we're going to start the meeting, and I just want to open up with welcome all the Star Nation meetup participants here. I hope you're all doing well, and I enjoy seeing bits and pieces of the in the Facebook group itself. Advice during this time and sharing of dreams that you all may have, maybe connecting with your Star Nation people. But I just want to let people know that we're going to continue the Star Nation meetup only through Zoom until otherwise noted from the CDC or whoever the authorities are. Meetup itself suggested not to meet in person during this pandemic. So we're going to meet on Zoom, and we're going to continue with a Zoom format with upcoming speakers. We do have Mary Rodwell has signed on for June, and that's going to be completely Zoom. She's going to be zooming in. I love that, zooming in from Australia. And she's going to be talking about a lot of her more recent research and things that she's experiencing and working on. Mary Rodwell is an internationally known researcher with ET starseeds, ET human hybrids, and um, just studying and being an advocate for people that do have at times unsettling experiences. And then Carol will be a speaker. I think Carol's still on here. Carol Collins, she channels James. It's a very large, I think James said that they're plentitudes of consciousness. And so I had the pleasure of having dinner with James for about an hour and a half, talk to James, the collective consciousness. And so Carol will be talking about her experience, perhaps with James. You'll have to go to the actual website, Star Nation Group, to see the details of Carol's talk. I believe that's going to be in, let me see if I can get it up here.
I think we're in July. We moved it to July.
Yeah, it's going to be in July. And let's see, it'll just take a second here. And so here's Carol's meetup, which will be in July. We don't know if it's going to be in person at that point, but there's a lot of information on the Star Nation meetup about what she's presenting. It will be really interesting. The title is The Powerfulness of Source. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I'm just going to open the floor to anybody here who wants to discuss any Star Nation meetup ideas or business or any upcoming presentations or talks or any topics that you would like to cover, or even share any of your personal experiences right now. I know that Athira and I talk a lot, and I had an experience that was quite bizarre standing at the sink while I was talking to her. Anybody want to share anything or give any ideas for presentation? Any of the STAR members here are welcome to present. I know Cindy and Athira at one point about a year ago did the fabulous sound communication and ET language. So I'm just going to open it up to anybody who would like to speak right now.
I didn't get a chance to talk, but I wanted to thank Kevin for sharing what he shared, because it never dawned on me that I could actually ask the ETs to give me confirmation. I do that with angels and guides all the time. I just never thought of doing it with the ETs. And I used to have a lot of communications more in the early 2000s when I spent a lot of time with Athira. And they sort of went by the wayside for me for a long time. You know, I channeled them a lot. I had so many experiences with so many different kinds, and I've noticed that I've kind of gotten away from it. They come to me, but most of the time it's not the same like it used to be. I guess I was used to the communication. And now, after hearing Kevin, I'm like, I need to start talking to them again. I can ask them questions. They're probably going to, you know, I can get confirmation. And is that what the light's been doing all these years when the light goes off and the light goes on? I'm like, I just thought that was my energy being big and blowing out a light, you know. They could be just confirming with me all the time. And I'm like, you know, I was used to years ago things rolling around the house when there was nothing pushing it. And, you know, I haven't had those things happen for a really long time until more recently. And I'm finally, somebody tonight was sitting on here playing with my hair, and I'm doing my little hand pendulum asking. And I was getting it was an ET, but I couldn't figure out which ET group it came from. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you, Kevin, because you gave me lots of clarity.
No, I find that when we get together as experiences, we all learn something, and it might just be one little step that helps us on our journey. And I often get information, as I did with that 80-year-old lady and Rebecca Renfro, and she gave me information, and I've just shared a little bit with you, and that's helped you on your journey. So that's why I enjoy meeting up with other experiences. It's a great learning curve for all of us.
I wanted to say that as you were speaking, Kevin, at a certain point, I saw an image of Giuliano and Helio A from the book Connecting with the Arcturians that David Miller channels, and I channeled Giuliano as well. and it was in my third eye, and I saw it get bigger and bigger and bigger, and I saw Giuliano smile like, yeah, I'm here too. So
It's very good, yeah.
I thought that was awesome.
That's amazing, amazing, yeah.
I think they're here, absolutely, during those Zooms, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. They're doing their own Zoom.
Popcorn, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I imagine they don't need a computer to do it.
I bet you they don't. Telepathic communication is much faster.
Anybody have any other presentation ideas coming up for the meetups, or any ideas about how to stay centered right now that you may have learned
Now,
about
because it is
yourself?
so important for us to stay in that now and not focus on the past, not focus on the future, because we create more of the now and we create more of the positive intention that we want to set so we can move into a brighter tomorrow, if you want to call it that.
Oh, absolutely. I just want to, while I'm on here, a news flash from Bloomberg, which is pretty much a respectable media outlet. I just, maybe before we leave, remind me, I don't have a good memory, maybe we could do a group prayer for New York City, because Rhode Island police are trying to hunt down New Yorkers who are seeking refuge because New York has closed their borders, apparently. And so these are people that have homes in Rhode Island.
Okay.
And so maybe we could just do a group prayer in general for everybody and right now, and then also particularly New York, because that's
I agree.
astounding to read that from Bloomberg. I mean, that's a pretty reputable newspaper. So some of the downloads I'm getting, I had actually my store people come to me. I think it was about a week before I would say politely, "The shit hit the fan."
Yeah.
For this right now, and that's when I started to post onto the Pittsburgh Metaphysics group that please everybody not meet in person. And so as a tuned in person, which we all are, I kind of was ahead of what was going on. And so they did meet up. They were coming into my room at night, and either my vibration isn't high enough right now, or I'm not tuned in a certain way. And maybe Kevin can help me with that. I don't really see them like they're standing in the room, but I can really feel them. And one of them went right in my face. And I said, "What's up? What's up? It feels goofy in the world right now. What's up?" And they said, "Do you want to come home now?" And I said, "What? So I want to come home now? I did all this work. Now, I'm meant to be here right now." And I'm hearing a lot of starseeds online say, "I came here for this. I got this. And so with the time period that we're having. And so I said, "No, my daughter's here. I don't really want to go home right now." And they said, "Well, okay, when you're ready, you can." And I said, "Well, why are you coming to me right now? What's going on? I see things unfolding that doesn't look very good." And they said, "Well, things are going to get kind of hard. You're going to have to buckle up, ration and buckle up, and you're going to have a great opportunity to grow as a soul." And so I said, "Okay, I'm going to stay." And so that's an experience I've had recently where they do visit me, but not to that point where they're in the room and they're like looking at my face. And so like just right there. And just the other night, I was at the kitchen talking to Athera, and I was doing the dishes a little bit, getting them ready to put them in the dishwasher, and my hair was blowing. Now my dad, who's deceased, he plays with my hair at times, but my hair was like almost like staticky or something. And I thought, "Is the fan on?" And I looked, and the fan wasn't on. And I said, "Oh, I just had a manifestation of some sort. What that was, I don't know." And so that's my sharing of, as a star seed, my personal experience as of late. So has anybody had any dreams or, experiences, like maybe the ETs talking to your family, talking to you?
Well, I just have a question. How would you know? I guess just ask. For me, I'm talking to consciousness. So I know the dimension that they have described themselves in, but I do have others that come in and talk to me on different occasions. And how are you guys asking I guess, discriminating who it is that you're talking to.
They have a vibrational stamp.
Yeah.
I channel Anne, and I always know when she comes in, the voice vibration changes, how she speaks changes. There's a definite vibrational stamp. And so when my partner pops in, and he communicates all the time with what's called a ports, where he'll move things around, and so that I can feel that's Alan. But when the Star Nation group, the Arcturians, come in, there's a vibrational stamp or a vibrational signature. That's the only way that I can describe it.
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't think I have experienced that yet.
Yeah.
For me, it feels like an anticipation of energy that begins to speed up, and it's a higher frequency, and it has a lot of energy to it, where when I'm working with the spiritual teacher, it's more like an encompassing energy. It's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, it feels very loving. I mean, I've had Grace try to maybe take me to the ship or something, and I just said, no, I'm having none of this. I don't like your energy. And that's not saying all Greys are negative, but according to Mary Rodwell, there's over 60 races of the Greys. And so I just didn't like that energy, and I told them to go away.
I can share a story with some Greys if you're interested. I've got time. It's only a quick story, but does anybody want to hear it?
I did.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, then, it was just I obviously know two Greys, Zark and Tag, and Zark's actually a mathematician engineer. I know he's married. He has 3 offsprings, and I think it's from the Pleiades system. And Tag is responsible for the security of this quadrant of the galaxy. And there's Tia, the pilot technician I met. I'd actually know 3 Greys, but on this occasion, it wasn't so long ago, probably last year sometime, and my dogs were barking. I've got 2 German Shepherds, and I got up to see what they were barking at. And I thought, well, while I'm up, I'll just let them out the front door and we'll go and have a look. So I opened the front door, the dogs went down to the bottom of the 4 steps there. And as I looked across to the front paddock, there was about 7 or 8 Greys walking across the paddock. And what I found interesting was as they walked, they had like a gate with them. It was they didn't walk like we do. It was more like a gate. And I thought I wasn't frightened. I thought, well, what do I do? I thought, well, I was concerned my dogs might go over and injure them or bite them or whatever. I don't know. So I called my dogs back in, and we went into the room, and I shut the door, and I thought, shall I go back out? And I thought, no, I'll just stand here and wait. So I stood there and waited. Then the door opened about 14 inches, 12 to 14 inches. And that was the last thing I remembered. The next thing I remember, I woke up in the morning and I thought it was a dream. And it wasn't until my wife said that I'd left the front door unlocked last night. And I have a routine where I go around and lock the doors before I go to bed. So that was unusual. But then later on, I had a memory that came back of me sat in the living room with 7 or 8 Greys sat around having a conversation. So I tended to think that it was a real event. And then I met Terry Lovelace in relation to he's had experience of seeing the Greys and things. And I didn't mention that I'd seen them with this particular gait and how they walk. I just asked him a question. I said, oh, was there anything unusual when you saw the Greys and how they walk? And he says, yes, they have an unusual gait. And that sort of verified to me that it wasn't a dream, it was an actual event, and they erased the memory. But quite interesting that A, I wasn't frightened, B, looking back on it, what I should have done is put the dogs inside, then walked out and greeted them. But it would appear that we did sit round and have a bit of a conflict in my living room, but still no memory of what we spoke about. But it was a different, and it was a different group to the usual ETs that I communicate with.
Yeah.
So that was unusual.
I didn't mean to say that all Greys were necessarily bad or low vibration. I just wasn't used to that vibrational signature, I guess. I was.
Okay, yeah.
It felt very mechanical. It didn't feel like the Arcturian. I didn't know what that was. But I just mentioned, like any type of experience you have, we have this wonderful internet now. Just check online. And when the events were happening that night that I thought they were going to take me, the exact same thing was in the storyline of personal experiences before you go on the ship. There was a clicking sound. They tapped my bed once, and the clicking sound in particular, like that. And
Right. Well, that's very interesting. I've heard that several times at the front of my house, that clicking sound, and I thought it was some insect or something, but it was just that sound that you did then. Yes, yes.
yeah.
So they must be around all the time, really. I think, you know.
Yeah, I want to bring in Rick Kempe. He's a friend of mine. He's an astrologer in town. He wants to find out if anybody's interested in working with him to gain. He wants to gain a wider knowledge, understanding how astrology can validate some of the ET contact and explore whatever else might be found through their charts. So he's going to speak in just a few moments, if that's okay. Rick, why don't you just come on and tell us what exactly that you're seeking here.
Doing research casually with the ET community, and I'd really like to go ahead and move it forward and expand it a little more so that I can help a broader range of folks. In order to do that, I really need to go ahead and have some samples from people who are experiencers. So I'm looking for experiencers who knew their birth time, that we can go ahead and connect. And I'm basically just looking for some volunteers to just go ahead and have some conversations around their charts. And then this research, and of course, is not going to be charged in any way, shape, or form. And later on, it'll give me the opportunity to help people get a little bit of understanding if they are feeling like they'd like to see what are the connections. Are there karmic lessons that are connected to some of these things?
That's a great question. Rick, put your email or whatever contact you'd like. Email everybody in the chat section. Do it everybody kind of.
Sure.
And then that way they can get a hold of you. And every participant here, I don't know how to do it, but you can actually download the chat itself and keep the website URL for Kevin. You can keep the chat itself and all of the emails. Like Rick's going to bring his email into the chat. So if you're interested in doing the studies for astrology, and that is, as far as meetup members here are concerned, through the woman I know in Egypt, she had done that online Zoom as a Star Nation meetup presenter on sovereignty and the feminine. She knows people online who do astrology, and they're specifically tying in different asteroids and different parts of the astrology chart to specific maybe even soul origins of your Star Nation peoples. So I'd like to somehow contact him and have him as a guest sometime in the fall, or we have a few slots coming up next month and the following month. I might ask him if he can come in. How does everybody feel about that, having a presenter for Zoom who is an astrologer? And of course, Rick, you're welcome to come back once you feel you found some valuable things, for your own astrology as far as star seeds and human hybrids and that kind of thing.
I've been working with the asteroids for about 10 years. Yeah. And that's the reason that I really feel comfortable to go ahead. And I've been using them mostly for helping people with trauma, pain, loss, and also past life recall. So past life and karmic issues have been my go-to for everybody, but then the pain, loss, and trauma are the other things that have been something that I've been using the asteroids for. Mm-hmm. And I also am seeing more evidence and opportunity to use them for dealing with the T contacts.
Yeah, Rick, get a hold of me, and if you want to, you're certainly welcome to become a presenter through Zoom or however it turns out to be coming up in the next months. So how does everybody feel about that? Okay. Kevin, are you going to become a Star Nation member?
Yes, I can do. Yes, and then I won't be able to attend all the meetings, but yeah, I will become a member, and then I'll attend as many meetings as I can. And sometimes I'm not able to stay the full 2 hours or whatever, but yeah, I'm going, and I need that interconnection.
Nice. Well, I think we're going to. It's 9 o'clock now, so we're doing it from 7 to 9. So we're going to close up. But before we close up, I want to give everybody the opportunity. One more thing that you'd like to say, and we're going to do that group prayer in a few.
Yeah.
So, does anybody want to say anything before we start the prayer?
Hi, this is Julia Taylor. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Julia.
Hi. I've been on since I guess 7:30, but I couldn't speak, or I don't know. Somehow no one heard me. So maybe it's the mute or something.
I went through the same thing.
I wanted to mention that I had an experience, but not positive, with the grays, with some grays. As you mentioned, there are many races, and it was the typical abduction for eggs. You know, it was very upsetting. It was very much a violation.
Thank you very much, Julia. And
like many of us, maybe, so I'm just starting to learn more about it.
I think we're all learning.
We're all learning.
Can't help me, just Wednesday.
I want to give myself a clap because I have never done a Zoom chat like this before. Right, Beth? I mean, the other night.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job.
Absolutely. Round of applause.
Moderating our meeting.
And Athera, if you would like to do the second half of the prayer, you're welcome too. But I'd like to start to lead a prayer for everybody to pray for being in the now, right now. Pray for peace on earth and groundedness. And then also the idea that I came up recently from downloading, that I've been telling myself 20 times a day how much I love myself, not in an ego way, but in a source love way. And I feel like I'm combating the virus. I have asthma, and I really shouldn't be getting the virus. And if I do, it needs to be mitigated. So I've been doing that. And so I'd like to send love to the world and to the virus itself, with the intention of getting through this time period. That it's probably a natural occurrence in a way to balance things out. So how does everybody feel about that?
Well, I have trouble sending love to the virus. Now, the virus is not living, of course. Have you seen Greg Braden's recent?
Founded by that, it's not a living. I had no idea. Viruses are not living, according to science. So that brings it to an idea of it's even more malleable to help it along, so it doesn't hurt a lot of our society and people. I mean, that's my thinking. It's not a living thing. I mean, what is it if it's not living, right?
Inanimate.
Let me go ahead and start. Put
inanimate.
Put feet on the floor, and you can keep your eyes open or closed, and you can put your palms up if you'd like. Get comfortable, and take a deep breath in through your nose. Deep breath in through your nose, and out through your mouth. As we sit in our awareness right now as a group, we are going to be sending from our heart area much love to ourselves, much love to those in hospital and suffering at this time. We're going to be sending love in a vibratory way. We can visualize the love coming out of our heart chakra. Perhaps pink, perhaps green, but the vibrational quality is coming out of our heart chakra, and it's growing and surrounding ourselves. The love energy is vibrating out and expanding to fill the room. The love vibration is expanding out to fill the town in which we are right now. The love vibration is growing in intensity. Vibration is growing in intensity in the color and the strength and it's filling the planet, and we are loving the planet and sending hope and intention through to the reset and getting through to the other side of this very much needed time right now. And I'm going to hand it over to Athira to continue the
say to the earth and to all her peoples. I want to send an energy of relief and an energy of soothing, a calmness and a unity for all of us everywhere, whatever walk of life we are in, whatever our belief system is, that peace and serenity that is so necessary at this time to find that calm space within ourselves and the more calmness for the planet and all of her people, all of Earth, whether we're starseed or angelic or whether we don't believe in any of this, we're all in this together now, and unity is the most important thing that we can have. So be it done now.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to have a prayer said or in your heart and your mind?
So we are here, we are James. We would like to say one thing. We would like to say one thing to each and every one of you, and that you are blessed with the gift of positivity. Share this positivity with everyone you meet, whether it is a smile, whether it is a handshake in these times, if you feel comfortable to do so, but walk around and do these 3 things. Number 1, go outside every single day, no matter the weather. Number 2, speak out loud, allowing yourself to listen to your own voice. Number 3, talk about something that is beautiful and uplifting and joyful. Why? And we are here. We are helping you raise this collective vibration of all. That is why.
Yaborana gustando ribrato saprana Iarono bolo som porkireno irvorvena karahaiti Jamburkina Putna Kraha Sim Pukara Tai Narkurina Borindakasanda Borana Kekihede. Blessings to all.
Thank you.
I think we're probably maybe done with the prayer. I want to thank everybody. I feel like you are all family, and I feel welcome to Kevin and all the new people who came on. And there was a man here that has come in late. His name is Stanford. Stanford, you want to say hi? And so I look forward to meeting with all you next month in Zoom. And once again, make sure you follow up with the URL Kevin Briggs and find out more about him. And find out more about him and his books. Follow up and check out Carol Collins' information on Facebook. She has a Monday through Friday get together with James. And then also, if you want to become a member of the Star Nation group too. So sign off on the meeting.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Kevin.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
all of you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
God bless.
It's, Vic.
Bye-bye.
Bye.